Dear Mama, you have so many questions, but not enough answers. You wish you didn't have to ask, and that's why I'm writing you this letter. You're not alone, you're not crazy, and I hope this helps. I see you because I am you. Sincerely, Mama. Hey, Mama, hey. You are tuned in to Sincerely Mama podcast, where we've created a safe space for us to share all things motherhood. No magical motherhood, but realistic motherhood. I'm your host, Jackie Bobbitt, millennial mom, entrepreneur, and purpose coach. Today we have Raphael and Tierra Peters sharing their experience with miscarriage. Although this is a mom podcast, today we are excited to have a male's perspective, a dad's perspective on how they went through the experience of miscarriage. Stick around. So let's talk about perspectives. So we know that this is a mom podcast and you're the first dad guest. And out of respect for my lovely husband, Daddy Fit, he has not come on here yet. After many invites, let's just put that out there just in case somebody's like, why isn't Kevin the first dad out here? You tell him to come on here. But Raph and Tierra, in you all's opinion, do you feel like you see a dad's perspective? Like, is that a large part of why you felt like you couldn't feel, Raph? You mentioned how you felt like you couldn't be weak. You couldn't share those emotions. Do you feel like it's because it's the lack of perspective from dads that endure miscarriage? Or do you guys feel like we do have a great amount of people sharing? Or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. I don't. If I wouldn't have had those two conversations, I would have just thought that dads just have to be strong and they can't show any emotions or even tell dads can't even tell other people how they feel. And I kind of feel like some of the responses kind of invalidated my emotions and my feelings, like talking to people about it. And they would, obviously check in and ask how I'm doing, but it would like quickly be dismissed and say, okay, how's Tierra doing? And there is it's different because she's carrying the baby, but it was still our child and something that hurt me just as bad. And I think, in a lot of ways, I think I'm a more emotional person. That wasn't helpful. And it communicated to me that I couldn't express my feelings. It's like, oh, okay, I just have to kind of just take it and be okay with that. And I became I was just angry. I became increasingly angry at people who would do that. And it's like, yeah, that's yes, Tierra, we want to make sure she's good, but I'm out here really struggling and having a hard time trying to put the pieces together and be strong. And I just really felt like that was a moment of vulnerability that was dismissed on my end. And it's still taking me time to fully put my mind around what happened. Recently having a conversation with somebody else about a miscarriage, revealing things that I still haven't worked through because it's I dismissed that. I just kind of okay, as a husband, you don't think about that. And talking to other people about miscarriage made me think about something that was just, suppressed for so long. So I definitely think that's the case. And I think part of it makes sense. There's, something to a woman and a child that a man will never experience and get to know. But I think that because of that, a lot of men kind of have to grieve in the shadows so that they, can care for their wives.
Wow. Tierra?
I don't think that I don't think men's voices are lifted up when it comes to miscarriage, especially when we consider social media, how many platforms there are that highlight a mother's experience. Now, there are some that highlight dads, and I think people love to hear that, but I think I think we hear more about a woman's experience with miscarriage, simply because there's more of that expressed online. I think in real life, like when you have heart to heart conversations with people, that is when you hear stories of men who've lost children. I remember talking to one of my uncles when I was traveling once, and he shared about him and my aunt having multiple miscarriages before they finally had their first live birth, first healthy pregnancy with one of my older cousins. So I think that there are men who are definitely experiencing this and who are willing to share, but we just don't hear them as much.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think so in the two conversations that I had with men about their miscarriage, one was kind of similar to me. Like, he's a very emotional person, and I felt close. The other one, he had shared that, like, yeah, like when we come back to the date of when our child would have been born, it always like does something to me. But in that conversation, he was kind of like, but yeah, my wife was more outwardly emotional. And it made me feel kind of feminine in a lot of ways, because I felt like initially it was more of me being outwardly emotional and wondering, is T good? Like, she ain't really showing no emotion right now. And was just kind of thinking I was crazy for a long time. And I think it's interesting too, like when you talk about social media and some of the, I guess, the pages or the people who post those things about men, as a man, I don't know those social media pages, so I never saw any of that.
Right.
So I just don't think that there's the exposure to the point to where it can be helpful for men, and that they know that that's a resource out there for them, or know that there's other men that, like a support group in a lot of ways, that, you know, can help walk through all of the emotions that you feel. But yeah.
So you all mentioned your 3 other children. Can you give us the ages and then share if you explained what was happening to them? And if you did, how did you do so?
So Khalil is our oldest child. He's 6. And then we have Zoe and Aaliyah, who are our twin girls. Zoe was born first, and then Aaliyah, and they're 3.
Mm-hmm. So Khalil was old enough to understand. Well, Khalil's old enough to understand and process that we were pregnant, and that meant that he would have another sibling. It's actually something that he had actively prayed for on his own initiative, which really just gets my heart. The twins actually, although they were only, they had just turned 2, they were old enough also to, they heard me say baby in mommy's belly. So they would always say, there's a baby in your belly. Mm-hmm. Khalil was present when I came home, bawling my eyes out and telling Raph what happened. And Khalil, we had to look him in the face and say, the baby is not in my belly anymore. The baby is in heaven. The baby's with God. And that was hard. I mean, he handled it like you would think any, I guess, 5-year-old could. I mean, I think there was a lot of confusion. I think there's disappointment, but also some difficulty with processing or understanding it. But he did go on, like in the weeks after, to say, we can pray again to God. Surprisingly, the twins were able to pick up on what happened, and in the weeks after would say, what happened to the baby? Where's the baby? Why is the baby not in your belly? And I think that was almost harder to handle than talking to Khalil, because Khalil could understand, but the twins couldn't. So that was difficult.
So you, Raph, mentioned in one of your responses that having another baby can't replace the baby that you lost. does experiencing this lessen the desire to continue to try to expand your family? Like, do you all still desire to try again?
Initially, there was a hard no from Ref, I think. He was very afraid that if we tried again, that I would miscarry again, which was interesting because I was much less afraid of miscarrying again. I think just because I understand statistically, I guess the likelihood of me miscarrying again when I've had, 2 other healthy pregnancies. And I think that was less my fear than it was for him. But I think my fear was just more so, we already had 3 children. And I think at that time I started to feel more of the pressures of having twins, twin toddlers, as they started to talk more and get into more things. So, my desire wasn't lessened because of the miscarriage. It changed because of twin parenting. But for Raph, I think initially he was very closed off. But now both of us still desire. Well, I say that you just raised your eyebrows. I think both of us still desire.
Raised my eyebrow because of our last conversation about trying.
I thought we both said that we still desired at some point to have another baby.
So
we're working this out on camera.
On camera, you get first dibs right here on Sincerely Mama.
I don't think it's anything to work out. I just think the timeline. We have 2 different timelines when it comes to when we're ready. Like, now that I am, desiring of having another child, like I'm ready now, and I want to try. I don't want to have conversations around having kids and then feel like it's a closed door right now. Like, oh yeah, in the future or a year from now, it's like, well, let's not even talk about it. Like if it's not in the cards right now, then there's no point of having the conversation for me. And then I also think about Tierra and just the hardship of parenting 3. And I'm like, well, yeah, like she said, it's not necessarily the miscarriage now that lessens the desire. It's more of the hardship of parenting multiple kids.
Right. So that's pretty normal for parents in general, right? We always have 2 different timelines, even before starting to have kids, just one person being ready before the other. So I think that is definitely something people can relate to.
Yeah, for sure.
So you guys have shared a lot. What would you say now, having at least a year times pass and you meet a family, they've just gotten the news, and you are the first people that they come in contact with? What would you say to that family?
I would say to them that there's no right way to grieve. Although if you Google it, I'm sure that there are some suggested paths. But I would tell them to give themselves space to heal and to grieve however they need to. I think initially I was feeling more pressure to feel more emotions on the front end, and then realize that, there are going to be moments that I'm going to be fine. And then there are going to be moments I'm not going to be fine. But I was feeling pressure to make myself feel something instead of allowing myself to feel what I was feeling, which was numb. So that would be, I would tell them to give themselves the time and the space to grieve and to heal.
Yeah, I think similar, knowing that everybody grieves differently, not allowing other people to determine how you grieve. Mm-hmm. And I also think, it being okay to be distracted initially, but also to encourage them not to stay there too long. I think that there was a time where I was just like, this is unhealthy. Like at a certain point, like I have to realize like I'm doing too much. And so I think that's something, and to tell people like how you feel. Like if you don't want them to come over, tell them don't come over. I wish there were a few times that I wish we would have said no to people trying to come. And then like there were people that we wanted to be there that I felt like were absent. But yeah, I think that would be the thing.
So we've talked about on another episode different things that people say that maybe they shouldn't have said. So give me some things, if you can think of on the top of your head. What are some things that you just would not say to a family that has just experienced miscarriage?
Yeah, first one, how are you doing? Like, what do you mean? How am I doing?
Right.
There's a family that just recently left, but yeah, they were just fumbling through it, and I appreciated the heart and desire behind it, but it wasn't helpful at all. But that's the first one that immediately comes to mind. Like, you don't even say anything. I would almost say, like, hey, just be here.
I would say maybe the wrong thing to say would definitely be maybe this is the universe's way of
the universe, the Lord's way.
No, this person said the universe's way of working things out, because I know that you had some initial anxiety or fear about having another. So maybe this is the universe's way of
wow.
What did they say? I guess like making it clear what, I don't know. I can't remember how they put it, but I remember like, I would expect you to be a little bit more sensitive, but I also know that people don't always know what to say, and people can mean well.
Right.
But don't tell me that this was God's will or the universe's will. Even if you have good intentions in that, that's not typically what a hurting person.
It's bad theology anyway, too. So. Anyways.
Come on, preacher.
They ain't ready for it. I'm trying to think of anything else that I feel like. I mean, obviously, like the use of scripture during that time, like to try to comfort and encourage, unless it's a passage where it's like how God draws near to those who are hurting, then
Absolutely.
anything apart from that, and maybe more towards how God uses things like suffering for, like, don't do that. Not right.
Even though that's true.
Yeah. And I think that allowing people who are grieving to come to that place and not be forced into that space is different. And I think a lot of people do try to force their theology, which we may agree with, but it's like, no, not right now. Like, it is a time to lament loss.
Absolutely.
And allowing that space to be there.
So we talked about some things that you shouldn't say or do, like come over all the time, but some things not to say. What should a friend or a family member do to show up or to create space for a family that has just experienced this or has experienced it at all?
I would say do something to lighten that family so that they can have the space that they need to heal, whether that's, a meal train, which is what we had, or having family come, not so much to be with you, because again, everybody grieves differently. And I know that I needed space initially, but maybe to care for your other children, or if you don't have children, like to do like chores for you in your house, like things that you can't, that would take up, things that would be distracting and not allow you to have time and space to feel. Find some people who are willing to lighten that load, but also just kind of play the background.
Yeah, I think I struggle with that one aspect of like getting people to care for your kids, because like during that time that was really hard for me.
You saying that
because I didn't want people to take my kids from me. I just lost a child. I want my children.
Wow.
And I remember that really being hard for me.
Yeah, I forgot you said that.
A lot of people were like, can you take? No, you can't take. No. And I remember being really defensive and broken up about it. And I think too, like it's different for different people. Like we had close friends, and that, I mean, obviously y'all couldn't be there because y'all in Hattiesburg. And, you know, we had other friends that were here where I'm like, man, I really want them to be here. And I didn't want everybody to be there, though. So it was kind of different. Didn't want my parents. Well, no, I did. I remember that was kind of a moment for me. We had been in Houston 2 years at that point. And I remember saying, like, I hadn't missed them a lot, but I miss them right now. And I really just want them here. Don't want any words or anything. I just want a hug. Just want somebody to love me. And to tell me it's going to be okay. It's not your fault. Those are kind of some of the things that I wanted to hear from, like, my parents, not just my family or like my best friends, not just friends in general. But yeah, I think that caring less with words and more with support is more the way. So the meal train was clutch. So we didn't have to think about cooking or anything like that. And then just ways to get it off of our minds without talking about it and feeling weird. Like, let's go to the gun range or the golf course or something like that, and, you know, just shoot the breeze. Right now, I need to act like everything is normal. So can you just, you know, not bring up or look at me like, you know, we just had a miscarriage.
Tiara, Ref, y'all know we love y'all so much, and we are so grateful. I'm really grateful that you all came on the show to share this very sensitive experience that you all went through. And I hope the listeners benefit from the conversation. I hope you all find some relief. Are there any last remarks?
I don't think so, but thank you for having us and allowing us to share.
We didn't talk about therapy, and I do feel like therapy. I mean, I've been inconsistent with my therapy, and part of it is because every time I go to my therapist, we talk about a million things. But I think being able to truly process with a professional is a recommended thing. Because there's just so many things that you don't even realize. Like, after I had the conversation with the guy about his miscarriage recently, and it uncovered all these emotions, I was like, man, there's still a lot that I need to work through that I'm not going to be able to work through on my own or just by happenstance. I need somebody that knows how to really give me the tools to be able to work through this. And it needs to be more than just my pastor. You know, I think that pastors, like, that's great. We're here for things like that, but, you know, we're not an expert. I mean, we may have even been able to experience some of those things, but as a pastor who's experienced miscarriage and who doesn't have all the tools himself to be able to uncover it, it makes me realize that, like, therapy is definitely needed for sure. It's not a question. It's a certainty thing.
Absolutely. Tiara, you good?
I'm good, sis.
Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much for coming on the show. Thank you all for listening, for tuning in. We are so glad that you decided to hang with us, and Fridays are so much better with you. We'll see you next time. Sincerely, Mama. Thank you so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, do me a favor and share it with another mama. Subscribe to this podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Also, connect with us on all social media platforms at Sincerely Mama Podcast. Remember, you're the best mama for your children. We'll see you next time. Sincerely, Mama.